Welcome to Letters from America, a road trip podcast searching for the Swedish footprint in the United States. I'm your host, Martin Van, and today I've parked my Volvo south of Washington, D.C., and with me in the Airstream is Kate Novak. Welcome.
Thank you.
There is a house in the center of Washington, D.C., overlooking the Potomac River. That house is called House of Sweden. And for me, it's the official center for the Swedish footprint in the United States. Mm-hmm. Because in that house is also the Embassy of Sweden. And the reason for that house even existing is you, right?
Yeah, I could say so.
Yeah. So before we jump into that house and to why it's placed where it is, with the river and the connection to Sweden and your vision about the house, can we start going back a little bit?
Of course.
How did you end up here?
Everything has a beginning, isn't that the truth?
Yes.
How did I end up in Washington or in the United States? Well, it's told that the reason for people to leave their original place of birth is either politics, money, or love.
Yeah.
And in my case, it was love.
All right.
Absolutely. I was just graduated from the French school in Stockholm, which meant I couldn't wait to be somewhere where I could speak French all the time.
All right.
So I convinced my parents, much against their will, to be able to go and live in Paris and study at the Sorbonne. And being a strong-willed only child who never doubted that my decision was correct, because I had always felt that only I knew what I wanted. And if I could accomplish that, great. I convinced them and off I went. So just before leaving, I am having a cup of tea in Stockholm at the recently opened tea house right in front of the Opera House.
Oh, yeah. Where are we in your age now?
My age, I am 19 just. I just turned 19.
Quite young.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
So I'm having tea, and I noticed it was so much fun because in 1959 there weren't really outdoor cafes and tea houses in Stockholm.
No.
And here we are in Kungsträdgården, and I notice this tea house is filled with young people, and there's a table with 3 young men sitting there, and they try to catch my attention, and I'm paying no attention because I'm busy talking French to some other student. And then I realize I hear the church bells right next to the Opera House. Is the most beautiful church, and I hear the bell 6 o'clock. Oh. And I felt like Cinderella because I had to leave. Dinner at my house was punctually at 6:30.
All right.
And I flew away, and I hear this thunderous sound. And I turn around as I am rushing to get on my way home. And there are the 3 young men following me. And my only thought was, I forgot something. Yeah. So I stopped, and within minutes, it is absolutely clear that all they want to do is to talk to me because I am the Swedish girl they've all read about. And of course, I would be willing to do anything they dream of. Yeah. And all they get to know from me is that I'm late for dinner. Yeah. I must go home for dinner. But I can talk tomorrow because I will probably have tea tomorrow. That was the meeting with my future husband, only I didn't know that then. But we exchanged addresses because they were going off to Copenhagen. And we communicated by letter. And we made a date in Paris. And so there you are. My time between Sorbonne and being chased around Paris from a young American who was studying at Oxford and took his little Volkswagen to Paris as soon as he could to see me, ended with...
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, yes. And then he had to go back because he had already spent his 2 years. It was coming to an end. And he said, it can't end here. We have to get married. This is... I know this is what it is. And I didn't know it, but he had written to my parents, who, of course, said, no, absolutely not. She's just starting her life. And again, this strong-willed girl made all her plans to get married in Paris and welcomed her parents to the wedding in Paris. Can you imagine how outrageous I was? I had never met his parents. I had never been to America.
Because Alan was your future husband at that point.
Yes.
He was an American.
He was an American
studying
at
in
Oxford.
Taking his Volkswagen to Paris.
Of course, chasing me around Paris. But I know one thing, which was that I had never met anybody that intrigued me and attracted me, and the combination of mind and heart at the age of 19 was overwhelming. And I guess I'm just curious by nature, but I just wanted more of that. And off we go. We get married in Paris. My parents arrived. I was convinced they were going to chloroform me and put me on a plane back to Sweden. But no, my mother fell in love with him as much as I had the minute they met. And off we go. We arrived in America, where Alan was now to start 3 years at the Yale Law School.
Right.
And, well, we have to survive.
Yeah.
We arrive in New Haven. I have now decided I'm going to look for a job. And I was so lucky. Quinnipiac University had a sign at the Yale Law School looking for a French teacher. Their French professor had gotten pregnant, and they were panicking. I arrive. My mother-in-law gave me a nice black dress to wear to look a little older.
Yeah. Like a French teacher.
And I put my hair up. I had long hair, put my hair up, and I tried to look reasonably old. I got the job.
You're like 20, 21 at this point.
I was 20.
20.
And I got the job, and I could hardly believe it. I was younger than the students at the university, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was so much fun. And the saddest part was that I couldn't stand the way they tortured the French language. Bonjour, madame. It was a torture. But 3 years passed very quickly, and they were just wonderful. Now, all I can tell you is that coming to another country, when everything you loved about your own country had absolutely no value here. What did they know about Swedish literature and everything that I loved? French literature.
You mean
literature, everything I knew and was
Swedish
dear to
culture
me,
that you sort of
and my
embraced,
French culture,
yeah.
Because I had landed in 1960 in a family whom I immediately loved. I couldn't believe that his parents were as wonderful, and his sister and brother-in-law were just as wonderful as my husband was. But I felt intellectually naked. I knew of America to the degree that we all knew in 1959, but the America that I had landed in was a new America with a young man running for president who was, well, I went to one of his speeches in New Haven, and I remember standing there and feeling my husband touch my chin to close my mouth, because my mouth was hanging open in amazement at the way this man spoke. It was gold. It was not boring political speeches. It was about hope and future, and it was extraordinary. And the same thing was happening at my husband's family's house.
And we're, of course, talking about John F. Kennedy. That's what
Of course. So in the
so
beginning...
you landed in the country that just had John F. Kennedy coming up, and all the changes in the 60s.
And all the changes with it. Not only that.
No.
My brother-in-law was the art critic for the New York Times. I am spending Saturdays walking down Madison Avenue, having dinner at night with their friends, the hoppers, the artists. I am in a world where everything that always appealed to me and made me curious and, can we say, turned on,
You can say
was
whatever
right
you want.
there. Was right there in my own world.
But did you feel that you were, at that point, were at the right place, or did you feel that you were sort of lost in that, like the Swede that didn't know where to go, or was it just everything opening? The opposite.
The
everything.
opposite. I felt like I was in a toy store of an intellectual life. I mean, it was everything I love.
Like a new door opening up.
Yeah, a whole new territory.
Yeah.
A whole new territory. And I guess I've never felt that not knowing something or not being able to do something is a handicap. It's just a chance to do it and to learn it. So I've never suffered that opposite of being intimidated of just that. So I just, went forward and
you just went for it.
Yeah, I went for it and learned. But then all of a sudden I realized that in all this, I also was longing to find out what did I prefer for me.
Yeah.
Because Alan had become a lawyer, we had come to Washington, and he was yet another new world. And he was, because he was a very smart young man, he got...
Why did you come to what? Was that because of politics? Or
No. There is, if you're a young lawyer, if you're really smart and you're really successful, the dream is to get a chance to be a clerk at the Supreme Court.
Oh, yeah.
And he got that. So now we are there in that world, which meant that I would drive our little Volkswagen into the garage
under the Supreme.
Of course, we drove the little Volkswagen into the garage, and I would sit in on all these extraordinary trials. I mean, America was in an upheaval of justice, of doing the right thing. And again, the law to me was what America was also about. It wasn't just culture developing so fast in the arts, in the theater, in the music. Think about the music that was happening.
Yeah.
I couldn't get enough, but it was also then the serious aspect of living in a political world. And Alan had only one ambition, which was that as soon as the year was up with the Justice Stewart, who he clerked for, he was going to go to work for John Kennedy. And of course they hired him while he was still at the court.
Oh, wow.
But in November, the president is assassinated.
Oh, so it was that same year?
That was that year. We were 63 in Washington. And that year, in November...
Yeah.
And
in Dallas.
Yeah, of course. So the shock of that was also, where does the dream go?
Yeah.
Where does the dream go? And I think the whole country felt that. And at the same time, the opposite forces with a Republican called Goldwater, who had slightly different ambitions than John F. Kennedy. And then the man who took over was never quite friendly with the Kennedys, President Johnson. But in the meanwhile, Alan said, as soon as I'm out of here, I got to get that man elected. I got to work for him to get him elected. We can't have Goldwater. So now started a whole new life of getting involved in politics that way. So Alan got involved with Young Citizens for Johnson, which was also very exciting because he organized meetings for young people, inviting the then interesting people like Barbara Streisand to sing, Peter Paul and Mary to sing.
Cultural revolution of the 60s.
Of course.
That's the heartland of
that.
But
of course. So I always felt like I landed on a lily pad. I can't believe, the most exciting times of this country, which also had extraordinary drama. And after Alan sort of got the election done, and we had great moments in Atlantic City for the big convention, when Alan lured Barbara Streisand to come down and sing, and she's standing there, and I'm sitting in the front row of the audience, and there she is with her hands, her huge fingernails, singing her magnificent voice. And I was sitting there, and again I felt Adam closing my mouth. I was in awe, Happy days are here again, you know.
Is that what it felt like?
Yeah, I felt when she sang it, and that's when I was just sitting there going, oh my God.
Because Lyndon B. Johnson, he was a different type of president.
But it was a win. It was a
victory,
win over Goldwater, that was the thing. But to take all that aside for a minute, in the meanwhile, I'm journeying with Alan. And I am sort of feeling my wings grow very strong because I am becoming more American. I'm learning about this country and I'm really loving what I'm learning. Even at the same time, I'm realizing all the problems. I don't have really the guts to march, which I wanted to, but I don't like crowds.
No.
So I was afraid to say to Alan, I'm going south because I'm going to join this group to go marching. But I felt so strongly about what was going on all around me. And then Alan gets a phone call from the Kennedys saying, Ted Kennedy, who's had a serious plane accident and now has to come back to work as a senator.
Yeah.
Now he has to get serious.
Yeah.
I mean, it's time. It's time.
But you said something. I want to go back to Ted Kennedy, and it's
Of course.
But you said something which is interesting because you were feeling more American.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious about what is the difference, because you're a woman, you're a young woman at this point. You're Swedish. You've been studying in Paris. So you've seen a little bit of the world, and you find your love in Paris, and you move to America, and now you're starting to feel more American. What is that?
I can only explain it this way. I think you are the sum of what you have experienced always.
Yeah.
And I'm now living in a land that is completely fascinating me on all levels. And I'm truly taking it all in and loving it, absolutely loving it, and feeling committed to a lot of the things I'm learning. And I always thought that, learning a language is what I find maybe the most fascinating in that aspect. My Swedish of 19 years of my life became colored. Every word got a color and an experience that made every word meaningful.
Yeah.
When you learn a language and you don't live in it or in the land of it.
When you study it, you mean?
Yeah, and when you don't live in it, the words haven't got color. They're not full. They're not filled with meaning. And at this point, I've already had such an exciting time that the words in my English are filling up with meaning.
Yeah.
And in that sense, I can sense that they're not English, they are American.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling the language profoundly, intellectually, and every word has now meaning. And that's the only way I can explain it, because on all levels we live on in our lives, language is who we are and how we communicate and how we express ourselves. So all of a sudden, my English, also because I'm a reader, became extraordinarily enriched, because I had a whole new world of literature to attack and fill up on. And there was an extraordinary volume of that in my life. I've always been a reader. I always thought that I would go blind from reading in the dark with a flashlight as a child.
But do you think that the country that we're sort of living in is really oriented around the language that we're sort of exchanging with each other? Is that really the basis of a country, you think? Because today we're in this
It's what you use the words for. Come on.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
ideas, and they take words.
Today we have a very geographic, geopolitic world. Everything is very geographic.
Yes.
This is the border, and from that side is another
Yes,
country. But
yes.
I would like to argue that the identity in the older days was much more connected to which language you spoke. So that's an interesting idea, and also to, you're young, but you still see the switch that you're doing. You still experience that I'm turning into something else.
Yeah.
That's a blessing in a way to be experiencing that while it's happening.
Yeah, I feel a little bit like these flags here, I mean, this is me. I am both.
Yeah.
You can never eliminate the first 19 years of your lives because they form you so profoundly.
Yeah.
I was reminded sometimes that I maybe was a bit confused when I would say to my husband, I think I'll go home early for Christmas this year. And he would look at me and say, home where? And I stopped for a second and I realized I had actually made him feel like where I wasn't home.
Oh yeah, I'm going to stop you there because that you're pushing me into the final question I'm always having on these shows. But we're going to get back to the home thing because we're now in Washington.
Yeah.
And we're in the 60s.
Yeah.
The political revolution of the Americas.
Yeah,
in a way.
yeah.
So where does it take us from there? Where do you go from there?
Well, I think the moment comes when, I think it's true for everybody, when you realize who you are, what you like to do, what you are good at, what you're not good at.
Yeah.
To accept what you're not good at, but still like to give it another try. But it's a profound moment when you say to yourself, I always thought, and then you realize, I must have grown up a bit because I don't feel that way anymore. I mean, I think we all go through that.
Yeah, I experienced that. You think you have an opinion about something.
Yeah.
And then I don't think that anymore.
So I decided to go back to school.
Oh, yeah.
And I decided that I have always loved buildings. I've always loved buildings. I wherever I've been, I've always looked up at the top of a building to see how they ended. How did they finish? And I remember as a child, my mother would always say, stop looking up, you don't see where you're going. But I always had that. So I decided to study architecture because I think maybe it also had to do with the fact that maybe I was not good enough to use words. Maybe I could create buildings, because buildings are not words.
No, very.
So I studied architecture.
Very much opposite of words.
Exactly. But I started studying architecture, and I decided, it was really funny, that in the midst of all of this, we also started about children. Children hadn't entered into the calculations yet. All of a sudden, I'm pregnant. And I'm pregnant with twins. Oh. And I decided that the courses I were taking at the time, I'd been intrigued by courses in interior design because inside of buildings was as interesting as the outside. And I had taken a part-time job for an architectural firm, and all they made me do was to furnish the offices. And I was intrigued by that, and I realized there was actually a profession for this. And I lived in a city where people come and go.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
We are like a transient city.
Yeah, very much so.
And I decided just to call up the head of the interior design firms and say, I'm so intrigued by this. Could I intern with you while I'm doing this? And we talked, and he said, absolutely. So all of a sudden, I leave the architectural firm, and I go to work for an interior design firm. And he was charmed. It was wonderful watching people come in and fall in love with fabrics. And I'm not a good salesperson. I'm not really interested in money. So the drive was not that. It was helping someone make a home for the time they are here. And I had some wonderful clients because all of a sudden my boss gave me clients, and now it's time for me to say, I think I have to take a little break here. And I disappeared for 3 years.
The twins.
Yes. Raising twins, because I didn't want to miss that.
No.
I thought, start their lives always having somebody. I was so intrigued by that. Of course, I read everything I could find out about twins. And they were not identical. So I didn't have to worry about who was who. They were different from the beginning.
But the two boys.
Two boys, Adam and Jonathan. All I know was that I couldn't love them enough, make them feel loved, because I grew up with that, and that is an irreplaceable support in your life. I knew that. And then I also wanted them to feel individual. I didn't want them to feel like they were two in a package.
No, but I think that's
and I
that's
saw
important
them,
for everybody. But
and
for
I
twins,
saw how different they were.
Yeah.
And that became true for the rest of their lives. They are truly a left and right brain, and I saw that from the beginning.
Lear-
So child rearing was part of the joy, and the second part was really to enjoy my career. I really did. I had great clients, but all of a sudden I get a client who is Swedish, Louise Schwebel. She was just married, and we became the best of friends. And we both loved reading, so we both, would come back with books for each other.
Yeah.
And we decided to start a little organization. And we invited other Swedes in the area to join us. And there was a Swedish club in New York called Svea with a simple V. We called and found out if we could use the same name. And her name is Lena Kaplan, a wonderful, wonderful person. And she said, yes, of course you can. You are you and we are who we are. I said, absolutely. We became, at one point, almost 400 people. Can you imagine? At that point,
Wow.
another
In
organization,
Oh, wow.
another organization out west had also grown. Agneta Nilsson had started Svea with a W.
Without knowing of each other.
Well, I had gone out to see her because I always saw her when I was in
Yeah.
LA. And we had talked about that fact, and she said, you should join us. I said, well, you're here and we're there. Eventually, Agneta, who could travel around the world because her husband worked for SAS, and I said, you can go everywhere with Svea, and it's everywhere. So having started in 79, 80, by 2000, we joined Svea International, W.
And for those who are not familiar, Svea is Swedish Women.
Educational Association.
So it's for women living abroad.
Yeah.
Abroad.
And absolutely,
Swedish women.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Our organization had really only one motivation, to create a library.
That's
Because
you
of
again.
course me.
That's you again, the reader.
So we had the library. I think the idea that the only thing we required for membership in a Swedish organization here in Washington was the commonality of language. You had to speak Swedish.
Oh, yeah.
And we should share what we knew. We should have speakers and share what we knew and invite guests who came to visit. And God knows I have forced everyone who came to visit me to be a speaker for Svea. Absolutely. Forced everybody. I mean, it was what you had to do if you came to see me. You had to sing for your supper, I guess the expression was. And it was fun. I, on the other hand, I also will tell you, had the joy of never really being far from Sweden, because everything Swedish that came here, I shared in. So I came to know so many absolutely wonderful people by just either opening my home as a residence or meeting them after a performance. My kind of people came into my life from Sweden. Writers, actors, singers. I love operas. Of course, the opera came into my life too. And everyone became my friend. And when I go to Stockholm, it was the great homecoming.
Yeah.
Now it was homecoming. So I would say that I have managed to keep both feet planted securely that way in the areas that interest me.
So that leads back to the first thing that we talked about.
Yes.
Right? A life is a broad thing. There's a lot of things I'd love to talk about, but we started out with that Swedish connection.
Yes.
And now we're back to that. We got Svea, we got your homecoming to Sweden.
Yes.
And you're telling me that you got one foot in each sort of culture of each country. So we're at the House of Sweden, in the middle of DC.
Yeah.
What happened? How did that come about?
That's a good question because it's very logical, actually. I had a good connection with the embassy that actually was housed downtown in an office building. And this is a city where every embassy has a magnificent building. You can drive Massachusetts Avenue and
The
admire
one taking over the other. You know?
one after the other. They had actually been for a while at the Watergate, when the Watergate building, which became famous later on,
For other reasons.
for other reasons, they had actually been housed there, which was kind of exciting because it was a great building. They were on the river and
Good location.
it was a good location. And then all of a sudden they move into an office building downtown. And here I am, back and forth all the time. And at the same time, my husband is involved in many things, but at that point, he had decided that the property sitting by the waterfront, filled with canoes from the university, was a ridiculous use for that property, and there should be a magnificent building there. And in that, he was an economist and a lawyer. He decided now he would take his business acumen and knowledge and do something about that.
Yeah.
So we were walking down to this property, and he said, you know, this is what it should be. One building here and one building there. And he got to work. And all I kept thinking of, yes, there should be a building there. And it should definitely be a Swedish embassy. Where else should Sweden have an embassy if not by the water? Everything is on the water. The royal castle is on the water. Stadshuset is by the water. All right. Grand Hotel is by the water.
Yeah.
All my favorite buildings are by the water. So there was the dinner one night. We were talking, and
You're at home now.
at home, and I said to my husband, you know, I have a thought. Sweden sits in an office building without a Swedish home. I want you to talk to Henrik Liljegren, the wonderful ambassador, and tell him that there is a possibility that maybe, one could have a Swedish embassy.
Are there really
the
any
waterfront.
maybes in your life?
You work on those, don't you?
Yeah.
You work on those. And he looked at me and he said, you're absolutely mad. You can't have an embassy at the hottest property in Washington. I said, we could try. And Alan at the time had been appointed by President Carter to the Commission for Fine Arts, which the present president avoids at all costs, because that is the commission decides what you can build, where, and what it can look like.
Yeah.
Well, you can't do anything without going through that. And Alan sat on that commission. And I used to love it because at that time he was sitting there while they were developing the plans for the Vietnam Memorial.
Oh, yeah.
It was so unbelievable to sit in on these hearings, to hear the for and the against. We want statues. We don't want a black hole in the ground. I mean, it was all these discussions, you know. So Alan looked at me and said, thanks, you're giving me yet another big one for the commission, aren't you? I said, you can only try.
Yeah.
Life is about trying.
Exactly.
Well, Henrik Liljegren said, let's meet down on the property. He brought his lovely wife, a bottle of champagne. We sat there amidst the canoe, watched the sunset.
So there was nothing there at this
It was
point.
just canoes.
Yeah, yeah.
And we sat there, and Henrik, I will never forget that meeting, because he said, oh, of course, this is where it should be. This is wonderful. We drank champagne, and off goes the offer to UD,
Yep.
Utrikesdepartementet.
Yeah, the Swedish.
That's the State Department.
The State
The
Department.
State Department.
Yeah.
Now we wait, and it was turned down. Alan proceeds, plans 2 office buildings, and goes ahead with everything. And all of a sudden, the crown is rising in vacuum.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
said,
the
Alan,
turn came in Sweden. Yeah.
Go back.
Yeah.
Jan Eliasson, our friend, is now the ambassador. You talk to Jan. And guess what happened?
Well, I guess.
We took it up. And they took it up, and there was a yes. And what had started in 1997 was okayed in 2002. And in 2004, the first shovel went into the ground.
Oh, wow.
With our present mayor. And in 2006, October 23rd, we had the big opening, and the king was there. It was magical. It was absolutely magical. It was there.
Yeah.
It was glass, and it was the river. It had happened.
20 years this year. That's amazing.
Only because I happened to be somebody who knew of the property, who knew and could convince the man who owned the property.
And you're also.
And I also love the architect. I mean, Gert Wingård is so incredible. And to have a building that's all light.
Yeah.
I'm a total light person. The house I live in now is all light. And I think we Swedes, I can't really say this without being ashamed, we need light. We need it so badly. We grow up in long winters of darkness. And I can I say it without, don't make me laugh now.
No. But I agree
feel
with
so
you. That,
strongly about that, you know.
And also you're a woman who don't think there's any maybes. You just go for it.
Well, there it is.
But
it stands there.
It's 20 years this year, which is quite amazing.
I know.
In October, it celebrates 20 years.
I know. We'll see how it's celebrated. Alan was honored by the King of Sweden with a medal. And I stood behind him and whispered as the ambassador pinned the medal on his chest. I stood right behind him. I whispered in his ear, you know what they say, behind every great man. And I hear Alan go, he's a great woman. We had a little moment, you know. But I lost him 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And that was hard. But I can tell you one thing. I had made myself a mantra. I had to. Because when you live with a person who is all about maybe, I mean, nothing. He never became a boring Wall Street lawyer.
No.
He decided to go for it and do what he could to change the world for a better place, to do the impossible, always. And never looked for, how should I say this, a financial success.
No.
He always wanted to do something that mattered.
And also, we're talking about footprints
Yes.
and a building that you can visit or sort of touch, lean on.
And a flag.
And a flag and walk into.
You're in Sweden. You're in Sweden.
You're in Sweden when you're inside.
Of course you are.
And to have that as a footprint, like I said in the beginning, it's the, administrative center of the Swedish footprints.
Of
it's
course.
like a representative of that. So that leads into what we've talked about. You're coming from Sweden or living in Washington.
Right.
Yeah, I think you said your family is from the south part of Sweden.
No, that's my grandmother, my momo. No, I'm from Stockholm.
You're from Stockholm?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So that's over there.
Right.
And Washington is over here.
You got it right.
And you've been embraced and also embracing American culture and life for...
I came when I was 20.
Yeah. That's a whole
I'm
life.
85 3/4.
And 3/4, is that how you start?
Well, I used to say 85 and a half, but we're
I'm lucky
rapidly...
you're not mentioning months.
We are but don't you remember when you were little?
Yeah.
You said, how old are you? 6 and a half.
6.5.
Half was very important.
Yeah.
It is now too.
It goes back. It comes back again. That's super funny.
July 5, I'm back. You know, go ahead.
No.
I'm interrupting you.
No, not at all. I love talking. Every single second I talk to you is just lovely. It's a simple question.
Yeah.
And we've already talked about it in a way. Where is home?
I got the perfect explanation. On my 50th birthday, it's a little longer answer, but it's the right answer. On my 50th birthday, I celebrated it in Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was there. My Swedish friends, my American friends came over, my children, of course, my husband, everyone was there. And I felt, for the first time in my life, that I never cared about birthdays, really. I think it's much more fun to go to other people's birthdays.
I agree.
I'm much more fun giving than taking. So I just loved the fact that I was surrounded by everybody I loved. And people are giving toasts, and it's wonderful. And then my dear friend stands up, and it's Jan Eliasson who stands up and is giving a speech. And I will never forget what he said. He said, you are, and he spoke English because I had all my American friends there, my family, said, you, Kate, are like a mangrove tree. I have no idea what that is. He said, a mangrove tree is so interesting. It starts its life at one point, it has its roots down in the mud and the water, and then the river rises and it flows with the river down to the next spot. It sinks its roots down there and is very happy there. And then the river goes back up again and it sinks its roots down there. That's how I think of
like
you.
Like the tide. That's what,
You are like a mangrove tree. You're just You're just as much at home here as over there. And that's my answer to you, because I think it's so perfectly said. It is true. I mean, my children are here, but children are one part of you, and so are the other F words, family and friends.
The other F words. Okay, but I'm going to force you anyway. You're not going to get away from the question. So
Since I spend most of my time here, I would say home, as my husband says, what do you call this? Home is definitely Washington.
Yeah, and I have your signature. I put a line from, just to explain.
Okay.
I'm all the way from Washington out
Yes.
in the blue area. So I need your signature out here.
Really?
Yeah, like all the other guests have done the same thing.
Where do I write it?
Right?
The whole thing?
Well, your signature.
Small, right?
I don't know. How do you usually write it?
There, my goodness.
My
I'm in the
goodness.
middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, because you
Suits
can't
me
write it. It's
perfectly.
no more. I have so many
It suits
guests.
me perfectly. I'm in the middle.
Exactly, you're in the middle. But I'm still going to continue with the question.
Go ahead. Torture me.
If you were to write a letter now from
Yeah.
this home,
Right.
which is Washington, D.C.,
Yeah.
to that home,
Right.
which is Stockholm,
Yes.
what would that letter be?
What it always is. Come visit. Come visit. Take with you everything I miss. I know there's some things you can't take with you, like fläskkorv, because I never ate when I was in Sweden.
But you have to have
But
it
I
here.
hear about it all the time. But come visit. And I think, that's what life is all about. I mean, every visit you make brings new people, new adventures. And as much as I love being here, I love to have Sweden come here. I love it. My door is always open. As my husband said, you are the best Airbnb in America. I love it. I love it. If you're an only child, you love company.
You can use, I got new postcards for you. I brought.
Aha.
So you can use one of these to send a letter to
Oh,
say
how
welcome.
wonderful. Thank you.
It's
Thank
been a
you.
pleasure talking to you, Kate.
Well, I don't know. I feel like
Time flies.
I gave you really my honest feelings.
Yeah, I
and your
appreciate that.
questions are wonderful. And I can only say that I think what you are doing, taking this trip through America, is something that we all get to share in. And I just wish you a great continued journey.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And thank you for coming to my trailer.
Thank you.
It's
Loved it.
It's been lovely.
I loved it. Thank you.
You have listened to Letters from America, a weekly road trip podcast celebrating the Swedish heritage in the United States. Produced in collaboration with the Embassy of Sweden in Washington, D.C., Volvo Cars USA, Volvo Trucks USA, and Airstream.